Today is July 28th edition of Back Roads of Illinois. We were Central Illinois agriculture source, and in the Midwest alongside in Central Illinois agriculture, we're glad you're here. Today is Friday afternoon. You know what time is for the weekend. Oh gosh, I will be sleeping for tomorrow. All right, this time is serious business on the show. John Deere have moved to another layoff again. Bird flu can be stopped in dairy herd. Wheat touring Dakotas. John Deere have moved to another layoff again in their plants in Illinois and Iowa. The company has made a decision to move in Mexico for next year. This is third time to have a layoff for this month. The bird flu can be stopped in dairy herd. Some farmers are concerned about the bird flu from the dairy herd. There was 8 states reported to have few cases of H5N1, but the risk remained low according to the Department of Agricultural and CDC. Some people are touring in North Dakota for spring wheat. The wheat progress in North Dakota and Minnesota is 50% for the crop progress. The wheat markets is voltage for right now. We were talking with Chris Robinson from Robinson Marketing for today's program. Stay tuned on Back Roads of Illinois. Our guest on today's program is Chris Robinson from Robinson Marketing in Chicago. Welcome to the show. How are you, Chris?
Well, I'm glad Friday's over. It was a tough day. Tough day.
Let's start with our conversation about the grain market after the close.
Okay.
About these corn prices for right now.
Well, corn has really been struggling all year. We started at the beginning of the year with our best prices really of the year, just north of $5. We are back down to sort of fighting for our $4 level here. That's key. We had a little bit of a bounce in the last week that we may have some sort of recovery, which was led by a good 50-cent bounce in soybeans. But we continue to suffer with the trend being lower, and just the fundamentals are negative for producers. The American farmer is very good at what he does. Right now, he's growing a pretty good crop, and the market is pricing that in. That's why we are back here fighting at $4 new crop corn, and we are fighting at $10.50 new crop soybeans.
How about the cash market basis?
Well, base market basis has been getting better, mostly because there are certain areas where obviously the end users can't lay their hands on corn. Also, it's typical for this time of the year where nobody really wants to be cleaning out their bins when it's 90 degrees or 100 degrees. At the end of the day, the other reason the basis is going up is because we've just had a sharp sell-off. In the last month alone, from July's high to this recent low, corn just broke 75 cents. So when that happens, it's not unusual to see the basis get better because the end users who are looking for corn, they need to make it tempting to producers. So We'll see. I think you know, moving ahead, if the prices get lower, basis will probably improve. Uh, Again, because the end users are going to have to um, have people, give them a reason to actually, go clean out their bins and put it in the truck and deliver it to them.
Chris, do you have any concerns about soybean futures for right now?
Yeah, my concern is the following. We know that the funds have a record short. Um, they look like they might have to cover a little bit last week. We did have a 50-cent rally, which is a nice short covering rally. We had some sales to China, but that's been the biggest problem. The new crop soybean sales have been very paltry, 19-year lows, and you've got new crop prices, actually corn, wheat, and beans, all at 3-year lows or near 3-year lows. That's the biggest concern, and there was no real issue with the growing season in South America. So the market is well supplied, and I think that's the concern moving ahead. We've had a difficult year so far. We began the year, in November, we were $2 higher. So that's something that we have to keep our eye on. And now it's going to be, will 1050 hold, 1040 hold. The below the move recently was 1031. Today we settled at 10, right around 1050, 1048. So the market's under pressure. I would advise producers to protect what you can today and hope that we get some sort of a rally between now and the end of August. My big concern is, though, this market's looking more and more like the 2014 market, and that was a market where we had price pressure pretty much all the way through harvest.
What is the export numbers from yesterday report from the Department of Agricultural?
I think it was a couple 100,000 metric tons that went to unknown. Typically, people think unknown is China, but that was our soybean sale yesterday. We'll see if that comes to fruition. But it was nice to see 2024 corn, the corn that we're growing, excuse me, the soybeans that we're growing right now. We've not had a whole lot of interest from China, and hopefully it'll be picking up here as prices, sit near $10. Got to remember, just a month ago we were at 11.30, and that was a dollar break. Hopefully for the American producer, $10 will hold. I think if I'm a hedger or a producer, I want to make sure that I have worst case hedges on the books to protect that revenue. What nobody wants to see is us going back to 975 corn or something like, 975 soybeans. That would be a problem for producers.
What is the test weight for the wheat for Great Plains and Southern Illinois?
We've had an outstanding crop. The American farmer has done a great job of growing a beautiful wheat crop this year. Sadly, it's put pressure on prices. We had a nice $2 rally, but the all information that we've seen come in, the crop is in excellent shape. One of the best crops we've grown in quite some time. So it's one of those situations. It's a catch-22. The American farmer has done such a good job producing that he's pressuring prices because the supply is increasing.
How about in Russia?
Russia, the crop continues to get a little bit bigger than people had expected. Russia has really been a very aggressive exporter. There were some concerns that the dryness that we've seen, especially in France, they've had a real issue with it being too dry there, and also parts of China too dry, but that has not impacted the Russian grain crop as much as people would have thought. So far they've continued to meet their production estimates. We have not seen any dramatic drops in Russian wheat production.
Can you tell our listeners about the livestock markets?
Absolutely. That's the one silver lining in all these markets. Cattle, particularly, continue to trade at or near like 8-month highs, 9-month highs. Live cattle, in particular, after the bird flu scare in April, the market just recovered beautifully. Earlier in the year, in December, we'd had a very big sell off. We've clawed all of that back. And historically, these are some of the really the best prices that we've had, certainly on the board price, for quite some time. So that has been a bright spot in American agriculture. And people have been concerned that the American producer would stop buying expensive beef. That has not happened. That has not impacted the price. Cash market has continued to stay strong. The last cattle on feed we had was friendly. It showed a little bit smaller herd than some people had thought. So that is a market that has been blessed really since the 2020 lows. Been on a tremendous rally. It's like everything else. At some point, it may go away. But these are, to have live cattle at, 188, 189, to have feeder cattle at 260. I compare it to when we had $8 corn and, $14 beans, $15 beans. It's a gift, and producers need to take care of it.
How is the cattle expansion for right now?
Right now, it looks pretty good. I would say that it's something that, if I'm a producer, we've seen what happens if we get any sort of scares about bird flu. Or the other thing I would worry about too with the cattle market, it's very sensitive to the stock market. If we were to have a sizable correction, I'm not talking about a 5% or 10%, but if we were to have some 30-40% correction in the stock market, that is something I would worry about if I was long cattle or producing cattle.
Find you.
Hey, you can find me at Robinson Ag Marketing. You can call me at 312-668-8868. I'm always available. If you need help, if you need advice, even if you're working with somebody else, if you just want a second opinion, give me a holler.
Do you have any final thoughts?
Well, I would say I'm concerned about not only this crop, 2024, but 2025 ahead. Look out there, and we don't want to see these 25 corn go south of 450. That's a level worth looking at. If you look at November of 2025 soybeans, and I don't want to see those go below 1050. My concern is that we could slip back into where we were between 2014 and 2020, where we had an oversupply, kind of tepid demand. Again, so, setting a hedge is not getting bearish. Setting a hedge is just protecting your revenue. So on that note, that's what I would say. I think that the next year and a half could be tough sledding. A lot depends on what happens with demand. But right now, the biggest problem is we are very well supplied, not only here at home, but throughout the world.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Caesar. Have a great weekend.
This is Chris Robinson from Robinson Marketing in Chicago on back roads of Illinois.
Okay, bye.
And welcome back to the show. I talked with Cesar Cruz from Advanced Trading about Brazil's soybean production on BRICS. Here's Cesar Cruz. Could you explain to our listeners about these commodities as top of agricultural in Brazil?
If they are the top agriculture commodities in Brazil, I think I understood well your question. So if this is right, your question, can ask me again if I'm not answering the right question. Brazil produces a lot of corn and beans. Consequently, for beans, they are also producing a lot of soybean meal, soybean oil. I can talk more about that later. Brazil is also one of the main coffee producers in the world. Brazil produces and exports a lot of beef, pork, and poultry, sugar, orange juice. So it's a very interesting country when we compare Brazil to the US. The joke that I usually make, if you take Brazil's map and you flip Brazil, Brazil is a very long country from south to north. And if you flip that map south, north, you can actually travel from New York to Seattle. So the big difference between Brazil and US, they are similar sized countries if you do not include Alaska, but Brazil is a tropical country. So Brazil can produce all those commodities I mentioned here throughout the year. So that's interesting because I mentioned before that we had 3 different corn crops in Brazil, the first, the second, the third corn crop. The dynamics that the production for those 3 crops is very interesting. So Brazilian producers, they plant their soybean production now in the spring in Brazil. Spring is going to start in Brazil in September. So in early October, producers are going to start planting beans in Brazil. In South Brazil, they have actually to choose, like we do here in the US, between corn or beans. But in Central West Brazil, where most of the production is, producers can plant soybeans. And once they harvest their beans early next year in 2025, January, February, they start planting their second corn crop. And the second corn crop that's about to be completed, harvest now, is the main crop in Brazil. So all over the year, Brazil is producing corn, beans, orange juice. Brazil is the largest producer of orange in the world, the main exporter of orange juice. They also have been having similar problems that we have in Florida with greenie. And all those beans, soybean meal, and corn, they use to feed a very big herd, large herds of beef cattle, dairy cattle, poultry, and pork. So Brazil has becoming a very important exporter of livestock, animal protein also in the world. Let me know if I answered your question. I'll be happy to do that
Like
again.
an I-90 corridor from New York to the West Coast.
Yes, it's a long way. Like from south to north, you can travel from New York to the West Coast. You're right. It's in a tropical country,
Cesar,
so you can imagine
how
how
is the
much.
soybean demand for export to China from Brazil?
Great question. So Brazil is the largest producer and exporter of soybeans. And the main destination for Brazilian beans is China. China accounts for, I would say, nearly 70% of total exports for Brazil. And Brazil has been seeing record exports to China also in the current year. So Brazil has already exported nearly 60 million metric tons of soybeans to China as of last month. That's the most current data that we have, to China. And Brazil is the main, the Brazilian beans are the main beans that China uses. So we are right there competing. They are right there competing with us here in US. Prices in Brazil were more competitive. Now Brazil has already reached its peak of exports for the season, and now as we're going to start harvesting in a month or two here in the US, we are going to start seeing more beans, American beans being more competitive than Brazilian beans in the international market. So probably going to see China buying more beans from the US than in Brazil. But again, China is the main buyer for Brazilian beans. A lot of competition for us from Brazil, and also Argentina now. Argentina, I forgot to mention that related to your first question. Last year, Argentina had a problem with a drought that affected both corn and beans production. They are recovering now, and because they are recovering, they've been exporting more in the current year. And China also buys some beans from Argentina. But Argentina is not a big exporter of beans. They usually keep their beans domestically because they crush. They are the main soybean meal and oil exporters in the world, in Argentina.
Brazil is in BRICS.
You're right. Yes, Brazil in BRICS. Brazil is the B for the BRICS, the first letter, with Russia, India, China, South Africa. And so there is probably a political trend there they're going to see in the coming years between Brazil and China, especially when we have this trade battle with the US. One benefit that Brazil also got from probably being from the BRICS, and for the idea that I believe China has for the diversify their markets. Brazil started as of 2 years ago now in 2022 to export corn to China. Brazil had never exported corn to China before the end of 2022, and now China is already the main destination for Brazilian corn. So they have this group of countries. They have more benefits because they have a partnership. They also have a bank that can finance projects in all those countries from the BRICS, and they probably have intentions to have more trade among the countries from this group from the BRICS. And of course, when you talk about that, it means that there is more competition with US products in general, not only commodities, agricultural commodities.
Is there anything would you like to talk to our listeners about this crop in Brazil since December?
So I would say like something interesting about the crops in Brazil in general. Not only the current crop, I would say, well, let me separate this answer in two parts. Let's talk about the current crop in Brazil and also in Argentina a little bit, and for the next crop marketing year. What is actually, I think most of the attention that we have when the USDA releases the WASDE report is in Brazil is estimating, rounding that up, 116. So there is a 6 million metric tons difference between those two agencies for corn. And this is not like a very small difference. This is actually the largest difference between those two agencies in history. Over the last 3 years, this difference between their estimates have been increasing. So 6 million metric tons is the largest that we have seen. Actually, no, because back in April, that difference was actually more than double that we currently see. So USDA has been decreasing their estimates, CONAB has been increasing the estimates for corn, and the gap has been reducing, but it is still the largest difference in history that we have had for those two agencies. So this is something very important. The market is trying to understand why we have such a difference for corn production. I don't have an answer, but I'm telling you the story. Sorry.
Do you have any final thoughts?
So I would say that for corn, I'm closer to the USDA. number. And I think most of my contacts in Brazil are also from the industry, also seeing the crop in Brazil closer to 120 million metric tons. As I mentioned before, Brazil still have like 10% to be harvested, and we're going to see actually probably going to have an idea of how big this crop is when we start seeing more of the export.
Caesar said that China is going to buy more beans in Brazil. Brazil is becoming a big competitor in the agricultural sector to the United States. You've been listening to Back Roads of Illinois. This is your commodity markets update on Back Roads of Illinois. Corn futures finished and down 8 to 7 cents. Soybean futures finished and down 4 to 6 cents. Wheat futures finished and down 8 to 9 cents. Now that we are going to talk about the livestock market for today on Back Roads of Illinois. Cattle futures finished and down 7 to 8 cents. Feeder cattle finished and down 8 to 10 cents. Lean hogs finished and down 4 to 3 cents. Texas crude oil finished and up 8 to 10 per barrel. Dow Jones finished and thanks to Chris Robinson from Robinson Marketing. We're running out of time on our show. You can listen to our show on YouTube and whenever you get your podcast. This has been Back Roads of Illinois. I am Cesar Delgado. Have a great weekend.